So I just met with a real estate agent who's making over $200,000 per year, and she still feels broke. And if you want to see how we transformed her finances in just a few minutes, keep watching. So let me tell you about Sarah. Some months she'd bring in as much as $30,000 or more, but other months it'd be nothing. She was constantly stressed and worried about taxes, unsure of how much to pay herself, and afraid of spending too much or too little. And if you've ever felt like you're making good money, but you still feel broke, you don't have necessarily an income problem, you have a financial systems problem. And today I'm going to show you exactly how we fixed it for her. So let's start by going over her situation. Looking at the business, she was making $200,000 per year, and if you average that out, it's about $16,500 per month. From a monthly expenses perspective, it was about $7,500, and that broke down into a couple key categories. One was marketing and lead gen was $3,000, about $1,500 for MLS dues and brokerage fees, other pieces that I didn't understand. Another $750 for her office or technology or CRM. Her car and gas and maintenance came to about $1,000, and then miscellaneous business costs were a little over $1,000. So when it came to the profit side of things, her gross before taxes was about $9,000 a month. But keep in mind that was wildly inconsistent, which was one of the biggest pieces because some months she'd make $30,000, $40,000, other months she wouldn't have any closings, and as a result, she'd have zero paycheck. Now, the biggest frustrations and pain points that came up while we were talking were about the inconsistent cash flow. With the huge months and then other months with absolutely nothing, it made really difficult to budget and to save money because she was either living high off the horse or felt like there was just absolutely no money for her to spend. The next problem was tax time. It was just a nightmare for her. She never felt comfortable about how much money she was setting aside. She wasn't doing it properly, and as a result, every March and April was constantly a source of stress for her. Next up was the constant mixing up of business and personal assets, and that was something that she really wanted to solve. Some months she'd transfer money randomly and she'd spend it when she felt rich and had a couple closings, but then in the months where she didn't have anything, she felt broke. So she didn't know how to pay herself and she just took whatever was left. And I'm sure that sounds familiar to most of you entrepreneurs. Now, when it came to the business and personal goals, the things that she wanted to accomplish, she really wanted to focus on paying herself a stable, predictable salary every month so that she didn't have to go on that roller coaster of income. She wanted to also automate her tax savings so that she was never caught off guard. Next up, she wanted to make sure that she was building some type of cash buffer for those slow months so that she could relax when it came to having to stress about money and not having enough set aside. She also wanted to set aside another $1,500 in terms of retirement investing, and she wanted to save up for another $30,000 down payment for a new home for the growing family. So the first thing that we did was we started to set up a simple automatic system so that Sarah could stop stressing about her money and start focusing on growing her business. And here's exactly how we did it. So I'm going to walk you through her exact map that we built for her. The first piece was coming up and creating a couple new accounts for her. We created the new business income account so we could route everything through Sequence and using all of the smart automation tools that are available. And what we did next was we created a couple core buckets for the business income. We created an owner pay bucket, a reserve fund, a business expense fund, and a taxes fund. So if you're familiar with Sequence, you probably already know this, but if not, all you need to do is click and drag to be able to create rules. And what we did was just this. So on the first of the month, all of the money would congregate into her business income account, and then we set up this rule to execute on the first of the month. We had 30% off the top going right to taxes. Next up, we had $7,500 going to her business expenses to account for all of the money that she was spending to grow the business. After that, the next $8,000 would go to the owner's pay bucket. And lastly, every remaining dollar that was left would go towards her reserve fund so that we were constantly growing that account. And this allowed us to instantly, whether she made $100 or $100,000 in a month, have that money automatically split up into those core 4 buckets that we set up for her. After we were done with the business side of things, we wanted to make sure that her personal finances were also set up correctly. And so what we did was we synced her personal checking account, and we created a couple additional buckets to accommodate the goals that she had. We wanted to set aside some money for fun and travel, wanted to set some money aside for retirement and investing, as well as a new down payment. And here's how those rules looked. What we would do is we would send on the 3rd of the month, we would have $3,500 going to her personal checking account because that's how much she was spending on bills, mortgage, insurance, all of those pieces. Next, we had $1,500 going to her retirement and investing account. After that, we had $2,000 going to her home down payment. And lastly, we had $1,000 going to fun and travel. And now, again, This is automatic. It's set up. Each of these accounts is set up so that it has its own bank account, a checking account that you can get a debit card for. So when she had to travel or spend money for vacation, she could pay for it directly out of this account. Same thing for the home down payment and all of these other pieces. Same with the taxes as well. And what we did is we also synced up her retirement account as well as a brokerage account so that she could start to max out both the long-term benefits when it comes to the tax-deferred status of some of her SEP IRAs, but also set some money aside in a non-qualified brokerage account. Again, this is not tax or legal advice, but for her situation, she wanted to make sure that we were funding both of those in an appropriate fashion. Now, you might say, this is great in the months where she's making more than $10, $20, $30,000, but what happens in the slow months? Well, because we set up the reserve fund, we were going to constantly be pooling money in there. And what we did is we created one additional rule. So the original business income was all going to distribute on the first, and her owner's pay money was all going to be split up on the third. What we did is we added one more rule from the reserve fund. And on the second, what we did is we added these two great little rules that you can have in. So out of her reserve fund, what it would do on the second of every month, after all the money's distributed, the rules would set up to look at this top-up feature. And the top-up feature is great because what it can do is it's going to look at the owner's pay bucket before it distributes her checking, her retirement, her travel, and her home down payment. And what it would do is it would look at, see if there's $8,000. And what it would do is it would top it up, meaning if it had $7,800 in there, it'd put $200 in there. If it was a slow month and it was only $1,000, well, it'd put $7,000 in there, or as much as it had to get up to that $8,000 level. And the same thing with the business expenses so that she could pay her rent, the CRM, all of those other expenses that she had. So by setting up this simple system, which again, you saw it only took a couple minutes, after we understood her problem, it allowed her to get out of that up and down cycle that caused so much stress and frustration for her. So now that this is all set up, let's take a look at where Sarah is now. Well, she's paying herself $8,000 every single month, no matter what. Taxes, they're handled. And the money is already set aside in a dedicated account so she never has to worry about spending it. She's also working towards her buffer account to grow that over the months. And she's actively investing in her future and on track to buy her next home. And best of all, she finally has that peace of mind. She's making great money and keeping more of it, all without the financial stress controlling her life like it used to. And listen, Sarah's situation isn't unique. She's not a unicorn. Plenty of people are in a very similar situation. You might be yourself. And with just a little effort, she was able to transform her situation entirely. She didn't win the lottery. She just put in a simple system in place to take control of her finances. So if you're making good money and you still feel broke, it's time to stop winging it and start running your finances like a business. And you can click below to get 25% off your first month of Sequence today and start automating your cash flow so that you can finally keep all of that money that you're earning.